Shalom and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of a Rosh Hashanah sermon by Rabbi Adam Kligfeld.
We're about to read a very hard text. It's hard to read when we confront it during the cycle of the Torah readings in Parshat Vayera. It's hard to read on Rosh Hashanah. It's the early narrative between Sarah and Abraham, Sarah and Abraham, and Hagar, the handmaiden, and the jealousy that Sarah has over Hagar being able to have a son first, Ishmael, and his expulsion, their expulsion from the family. It's a hard text because it's almost impossible to read through it and not have the question reverberate through your mind, both within the logic of the story and refracted through history, and that's a question of whose side are we on in this drama. Ramban, Nachmanides, the great Spanish sage from the Middle Ages, basically says, blame Sarah. This is all Sarah's fault. She couldn't control her envy, and her small-heartedness essentially launches a primordial battle between Ishmael and Isaac that continues to this day. And he was writing 800 years ago. He said we basically inherit the pain of her initial wound. But my dear friend, Rabbi David Ingber, has a different response. He basically says, read the text, dummy. Read the pshat. The Torah could have presented the story that way. But God is clear, at least the way the Torah presents it. God says to Abraham, Kol asher tomar elecha Sarah shma b'kola. Listen to her voice, Abraham. Everything that she says, do exactly as she says. Her grievances in the situation have merit. Does God specifically endorse every action taken by Abraham and Sarah? No. But God makes it clear that Sarah's pain is real. Sarah's response is pretty brutal within a family dynamic. It's hard to read through. But Sarah's experience in that family must be witnessed and embraced. Now, this is not a moment for a full sermon on the Middle East. But Ishmael and Isaac are still battling. And this narrative, the first in human textual history that points to the seed of the millennium-long conflict, makes one thing utterly clear. And that's that the simplistic binary of oppressed, oppressor, powerless, powerful, that frame is pathetically inadequate and is insufficiently complex to confront the dynamics even in one family, such that we could obviously point out which character gets our sympathy, let alone to confront the dynamics of battles between nations and peoples. As someone who considers myself to be generally a liberal, progressive person, it pains me to see how in many, not all, but in many places, liberal thought has been rendered illiberal, reducing all engagements to the oppressed-oppressor dyad, and then valorizing the seemingly oppressed and demonizing the apparent oppressor. It's all too facile, and the Jew is always on the wrong side of this assessment. The number of places in our country and in the world in which otherwise intelligent people have made up their minds and are not even interested in leaning into the Jewish perspective, the Israeli perspective, Sarah's perspective, as it were, it's crushing. You don't lean in to endorse every action of another person. You lean in to understand, because things are complex. And in the other direction, we Zionists, we lovers of Israel, and supporters of the notion that yes, Jews do suffer, and yes, Jews do deserve a nation state, and yes, Jews are the target of incessant, irrational hatred, we cannot let that certainty harden us to the real lived experiences of the Ishmaels amongst us. Certainly the innocent ones, and there are many, like the character Yishmael, who get caught in a geopolitical horror just as Yishmael the boy was caught in family drama and find themselves alone and hungry and terrified. Long ago, the Torah knew and taught us that simplistic thinking is the enemy of good acting. So we should double down on our convictions, all while thickening our considerations. We should have empathy for Yishmael, and we should listen to Sarah's cries.
You have been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast site or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Temple Beth Am Los Angeles, go to tbala.org.